Approximately 19 people go overboard each year, although the overall number of passengers for cruise lines is in the millions.
You are now listening to The Missing Ones, a true crime podcast dedicated to shedding light on the stories of men, women, and children of color who have gone missing. In a world where media coverage often favors certain narratives, we recognize a painful truth. People of color frequently receive far less attention when they disappear. Our mission is clear: to bring awareness to their stories, to amplify their voices, and to advocate for their safe return. This is The Missing Ones.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 3 of The Missing Ones, a true crime podcast, hosted by your favorite podcaster, Kay. I hope that you all are having a wonderful Saturday and are ready to dive into another case to bring one of ours home to their family, or at the very least, to provide them closure. Tonight's wine of choice is Stella Rosa Peach, which I know it's pretty basic, but listen, I got to go to work in the morning, so yeah, I definitely got to take it easy. Now, tonight, we're going to dive into a very controversial case. It's going to have you wondering if he just disappeared to escape or if there is indeed a cover up at work. Either way, you're definitely going to want to account for your party on that next family cruise. This is the story of Kevin McGrath. Kevin Sean McGrath was born May 9th, 1997, to Sean and Deborah McGrath. However, he didn't come into the world alone. He happened to be lucky enough to be born with a twin, Andre. Now, originally, he lived in New York. His mother was a New York police officer. Shout out to NYPD. His father was in the military. Along with his brother Andre, they had a sister, Danielle. Now, there's not much on his background as far as where he went to school and things like that. I do know that he attended high school in Queens, New York, and his family was very much, no nonsense. Like I said, his father was in the military, his mother was a police officer. They pretty much had like the tough love style dynamic. But after he graduated high school in 2015, he wasted no time and decided that, college wasn't necessarily for him. He decided that he wanted to follow in his father's footsteps and he joined the United States Army. And like I said, literally wasted no time. He gets stationed in Italy. And from there, he spent some time before he ended up going to Fort Campbell, which was in Kentucky. Now, he spent a few years in Kentucky, and in 2019, it was while he was there that he met the love of his life, Addison Lynn Thomas. Now, they had pretty much, a whirlwind love affair. They met on Tinder towards the end of 2018, early 2019. Dang, I didn't even know Tinder was like around back then. Yikes. Stuff has been around a lot longer than I remember. But yeah, so they met on Tinder towards the end of 2018, early 2019. And they started exchanging messages and everything. Y'all know how that go. Like I know I've done it. You be, texting all day long, be ready to jump when that phone buzz and you see they done messaged you, especially when you're not in the same state. And see, Addison was living in Paducah, Kentucky, and Kevin was there in Fort Campbell. So even though they were in the same state, they just weren't in the same cities. And he was really feeling her. Like he was telling her, like, listen, baby, I'm trying to see you. I'm trying to see what you're talking about. Like, come through. And she did. Like she was roughly an hour and a half away. So she made her way to Fort Campbell. And within a few months of the two of them meeting and, hanging out and everything, and I guess you could say solidifying their relationship or consummating their relationship, so to speak, Addison ends up pregnant with her second child and his first child during one of her visits to Fort Campbell. So when she tells him, Kevin, baby, you know what? We gotta talk. I'm pregnant. He's ecstatic. He's having a baby. But, she's still in Paducah. And so he's like, all right, so, you're gonna move to Fort Campbell, right? And, of course, it didn't take any convincing because, she's having his baby. Plus, he's a good positive influence in her son's life. So she and her son, that, obviously she already had, moved to Fort Campbell to be with Kevin. They get married and their family is made. Now, later on in December of 2019, she gives birth to their daughter, Cadence. And Kevin's life is just changed for the better. He's being a wonderful father to their daughter and a stepfather to her son. And then, not long after, Addison gets pregnant again. Now, see, y'all know y'all supposed to wait until a certain time after you done had that baby. Y'all know y'all supposed to wait. But hey, I mean, when you in love, it happens. So she gets pregnant again. And at first, everything is okay. But Kevin starts to go through these bouts of depression. He's getting involved in extracurricular activities that are illegal. And, it's rumored, and I stress the word rumored because I'm not trying to be sued or anything like that. But yeah, it was rumored that some of his army buddies were, into some shit that they shouldn't have been into. And unfortunately, Kevin started dealing with drugs. And, sometimes Kevin would do things that was, well, very worrisome to Addison. Okay, take a pause. Did I say illegal earlier? Yikes. Yeah, y'all, I need a nap. Anywho, so the two of them had a very good, marriage initially. And during the time that Kevin is in the army, he and Addison ended up moving to Clarksville, Tennessee, and they're like borders. So like it's not really that far. Like Clarksville, Tennessee is basically right there in Kentucky. But, so they moved to Clarksville, Tennessee, and he also still had to perform his duties as, a man in the army. And in doing so, he ended up doing several different tours. He did tours in Iraq, Afghanistan, Syria, and he gave 6 years of his life to the army. Now, I don't know if it was because of the PTSD from the tours and the things that he saw there. However, he did end up a little traumatized. And unfortunately, there were some situations where Kevin wasn't able to really control his temper, or couldn't control his temper, rather. And ultimately, he ended up taking it out on Addison. On November 25th, 2020, there was an incident where he committed aggravated assault with a deadly weapon. Now, their relationship was, silly and kind of like sarcastic. They played around with each other a lot, but sometimes Kevin could continue to play a little bit too much. And for lack of better words, Addison didn't know if he was being serious or not. Like, she's pregnant again with their second child. And this is during Thanksgiving break. And, she's at home taking care of the kids. Kevin comes in and she can tell that, he's in one of his moods, so to speak. And so out of nowhere, he just tells her, "You know what? I think about killing you and the kids sometimes." And she's like, "Wait, say what?" And he tells her again, "Yeah, I'm thinking about killing you and the kids." And she's thinking that he's joking at first because, that's their dynamic. They laugh and joke with each other in a, sarcastic way. I know I've done it, in the past with my spouse or ex spouse. And so, she's thinking that he's joking, and she's kind of unwillingly or unknowingly challenging him like, okay, haha, yeah, okay, go ahead and do it. But it's not until he goes into the room and grabs his gun and puts it in his waistband that she's like, okay, wait a minute. Yeah, he a little serious. So she's telling him like, okay, you know what, Kevin, clearly you tripping right now. So I'm just going to leave. Like, she just wants to get out of his face. Maybe he just needs a few minutes to cool off, and, so she just wants to give him that. But he tells her, "Yeah, if you leave, just letting you know when you come back, everybody gonna be dead." And of course, as a mother, that's the last thing you wanna hear. Her babies, like, her kids are in the house, so she knows she ain't going nowhere. "I'm not leaving my babies here like this." And so she stays. Now, things at some point became physical until finally Kevin decides he's going to leave and Addison calls the police. So the police come and they talk to her and they're like, okay, no worries. We're on it. We're going to go ahead and arrest him. So Kevin actually gets arrested on Thanksgiving. And Addison and her kids, they go ahead and get a hotel room because when he does get out, the police are telling her, like, hey, I don't think you want to be here. Just protect yourself and your kids. So after he's arrested, he gets released on a $50,000 bond. Now, for whatever reason, every time that they would go to court, it kept getting rescheduled. Now, I can only assume that part of that is because she was pregnant and this was also during COVID. But, despite all of that, in 2020, Addison gives birth to their son, Zaire. And, this wasn't necessarily the way that she wanted her kids to, know their father. And, Kevin has such a great relationship with his daughter, but his relationship with his son was kind of strained because at this point they're separated and they're separated because of the aggravated assault. But Addison is still, allowing her kids to see their dad. And, she and Kevin are still talking somewhat, communicating with each other. Addison is, thinking to herself, it's not like he's beating me every day. It's not like, he's a bad person. Like he said some stuff and he did some stuff during the time where, he was under the influence, but he's not a bad guy. And that in itself is a mitigating factor. But she has babies with him. She's got 2 of his children, and he's a good father, and she wants for him to be able to continue to be that good father. Like, they would meet at the park, he would call her and just be like, "Hey, I wanna see the kids." Like, she had no issues, and they would meet up and all kind of things and spend time together. They talked every day. He still checked on her. But there was still a kind of a dark side of Kevin that he just couldn't shake. And the threats of violence became too much. And on December 6th, 2021, Addison went to the courts and filed for an order of protection against Kevin because he had threatened to kill her and their kids. So at this point, the aggravated assault charge is still pending because Kevin has not, been to court for it yet. But now he has this order of protection and he has to go to court for that as well. Well, that ended up getting rescheduled 3 times also. And let me tell you, dealing with the courts, that can be so frustrating. Like, I know firsthand when you're ready to get something over with and it just keeps getting rescheduled and rescheduled and rescheduled, and you just like, damn, what is the holdup? Like, I get it. When COVID happened, there were so many cases that got put behind, but it's like, yo, we're here. Like, if you know you're going to reschedule this, why waste my time and having me come to this courthouse and, taking off time from work 9 times out of 10? Like, it's stressful. So I definitely understand. And, I guess Addison had had enough because August 9th, 2022, she files for divorce. So Kevin has all of this that he's dealing with. And now, he's about to be divorced. He's got 2 kids and he's trying to get his life back on track. Now, during this time, he had also returned back to court because remember, he had that pending aggravated assault charge. So around the time that the divorce was filed in September of 2022, he just goes ahead and pleads guilty to aggravated assault, and he was given 6 years of supervised probation. Now, at this point, Kevin felt like, it was time for him to get a fresh start. He decided that he needed to move away from Clarksville, Tennessee, and just start over. So he hits up his probation officer and he was like, "Look, I need to get out of here and I need to start my life over. I need to get things together." So he gets permission to move to Port St. Lucie, Florida with his parents. Now at this point his parents had retired, but he got special permission to move and that's exactly what he did. He went to Florida. And for him, that was the worst feeling in the world because here he is a grown man having to live with his parents and they're very strict. He's living in their garage. Kevin had envisioned his life going in a different direction. He had, envisioned his life being completely different. This man served in various parts of the world protecting his country. He put his life on the line every day. And now he's just back with his parents. And it was hard for him because every day he felt like a disappointment. Every day he felt like, he was just in the way there. He felt like nobody understood him. He was trying to find work because, he had left the military at that point. And throughout all of this, at least he had that one good thing. He had that saving grace. He had communication with Addison and his kids. Even though, there was an order of protection in place and all of that, and they weren't supposed to be in communication, again, she felt like it was important for him to have that communication with his kids, to have that bond, to have that relationship. She still has love for him just as much as, he got love for her. He's telling her how much he misses her and the kids, and, how once he gets things together financially that he's going to come and visit. Not long after he gets to Florida, his father decides that he's going to celebrate his 60th birthday. Yes, birthday celebration turn up. And y'all know black folks, when we go to celebrate, we do it big. Okay. He and damn near his entire family decided to do a 3-day cruise on one of my favorite Carnival cruise lines. Now, the cruise that they were going on was out of Miami, Florida. So they had to go to Port of Miami on the Carnival Conquest. Now, the Conquest is probably one of my favorite ships that I've been on. They've got some of the best food, it's lots of fun, lots of activities, all of that. Like, I could be on Conquest for days and have been. Just going to the Lido deck alone, listen, give me guys burgers, a drink, and you will catch me on the Lido deck with my swimsuit chilling, okay? Getting fat and having fun. But, like I said, the Conquest, it's a little bit older. Like, I've cruised it multiple times with Carnival. It's an older ship, but it's fun. Like, it's right up there with Glory. So about 44 of them total were on this ship. So of course, Kevin and his brother Andre, they room together, and basically they decide to go on this cruise together. Now, this particular cruise was going to Bimini, which is in the Bahamas. So it was a shorter trip. They left on September 1st, had a day at sea, ported in Bimini for several hours, and then returned to Miami the next morning. So that's typically, how it is with the shorter cruises. Me personally, I prefer a good 4 to 5 day cruise before I need to, go and have fun. Like, for me to have fun, it's got to be at least 4 to 5 days. Like, I need to go to at least more than one port. Like, going to one port is cool, but I need to go to Nassau if I'm in the Bahamas. Like, that's one of my favorite stops. You will catch me in Nassau at least once a year. Hell, y'all have heard me talking about it on my other show, the infamous ones. When I graduate in December, my gift is a cruise that I'm going on, and I'm going to be going to Nassau, Princess Key, Celebration Key. Yeah, just a little personal moment. My bad. But anyway, so Kevin's dad, Sean, decides that he's going to celebrate his 60th birthday via Carnival Cruise. And that's a great way to, celebrate. Y'all get them rates, especially when you do the group discounts. Because so many people booked, I'm pretty sure that his room was free. But family, friends, everything is all inclusive, you know what I'm saying? It's a good old time. So, like I said, Kevin and Andre, they roomed together. Now, for whatever reason, his sister Danielle didn't go. I don't know if it was like, work obligations or what have you, but she ended up staying behind. So, everybody gets onto the ship without a problem. Here's one problem though. Kevin never actually checked in with his probation officer to get the permission to leave. Now, there's a couple of different ways that you can look at this. One, Kevin should have contacted his probation officer and just said, "Hey, you know what? My family's planning this cruise. We're going to the Bahamas. Is it cool?" Because naturally, when you're on probation, you're not supposed to leave the state without permission, let alone the country. The same way that he, left Tennessee and got permission to move to Florida to be with his family was what he should have done to go on the cruise because again, you're not supposed to leave the state. Now you trying to leave the country. You going to the Bahamas. So, although he was supposed to have contacted his probation officer to do that, he did not. And I mean, he was well aware that he was supposed to because hell, he contacted him for permission to move. So that's just one way of looking at it. Now, there's another theory that I want to talk about, but I'm going to wait until a little bit later during Make It Make Sense. But be that as it may, Kevin and his family, they get on the ship and they board with no problems. They have a great time. Lots of pictures were taken. A few of them have been posted up on websites that um had the story covered and everything. And by all accounts, it looked like they were just having a good time. So they go to Bimini and, they're having a blast and everything. But everything begins to change September 3rd. So it's the evening of September 3rd, 2023. and Kevin is talking with his father, Sean, on the ship. Now, for those that have never been on a cruise, typically the night before you debark, you put all of your luggage outside of your room with your tags and everything. And depending on what type of debarkation you may have, for example, some have priority. The porters will come and get your luggage for you. They'll put it on the cards, take it down, all of that. So that way you can go through customs, get it knocked out. So his dad gave him the luggage tag so that way he could put his stuff up and make sure that his luggage was identified and whatnot. And Sean, he tells him, hey son, make sure that you come to breakfast in the morning. We're gonna be meeting up for breakfast. You and your brother be here at 7:30 a.m. with the rest of us. And Kevin, he's cool. He's like, all right, pops, I got you, say less. Now that was on September 3rd around 10 o'clock at night. They're scheduled to debark the next day, and debarkation is usually at 8 a.m., but you get plenty of time to get off the ship. Not everybody is really rushing to get off that early. Some people like to, stay behind and eat breakfast and kind of just, lounge for a little bit before they get off. But, they start to shut everything down on the ship around 10 or 11. That way they can go ahead and start to get everybody off, clean up, and get ready for the next group of cruisers. So Kevin gets his tags from his father and they part ways. And Kevin decides, man, you know what? I'm not tired. So he goes and he decides to go to one of the live parties on the ship. Now, again, if you've never cruised with Carnival, they have parties every single night. They have the silent parties where you wear the headphones. They have the all white parties. They have the disco parties. You name it, I have probably been at all of them. Don't judge me, judge your mamas. Okay. But they have parties for all age groups and everything. And there were actually, pictures of Kevin dancing at one of the parties, and he's having a good old time. Like this was around 2 o'clock in the morning that there were photos that captured Kevin dancing. And with cruise ships, you have to have what's called a sail and sign card. Now, your sail and sign card is basically your identification on the ship. It's how you get into everything, how you purchase things, how you get on and off the ship, all of that. When they ported in Bimini and got off the ship to go explore the island, you swipe your sail and sign card because that lets Carnival know, okay, they're getting off the ship. When you get ready to get back on, you use your ID, whatever, your passport or your state ID or license or whatever, as well as your sail and sign card. You swipe it again, it lets them know, okay, they're back. That's what the sail and sign card is. And you can also, like I said, you purchase things, all of that. So to get into your rooms, you need your sail and sign card. To make purchases on the ship, from, alcohol to food to whatever that's, extra and not included, you use your sail and sign card. And there's a specific identification number that lets Carnival Cruise Line know that it's you. I want to say it's like a 4-digit number. So Kevin uses his card and he goes back to his room around 3:30 in the morning. Scanned showing that he went into the room. Now, Andre is already in the room. Ooh, baby, he a good one cuz 3:30 in the morning is definitely an early night for me when I'm on vacation, especially if I'm on a cruise. I'm probably still on the Lido deck eating pizza and ice cream. But that's just me. Anyway, not my story. My bad. So Kevin gets back to his room and he lays it down to go to sleep. Now, around 5 a.m., Andre wakes up and he thinks that he hears Kevin leaving. And actually, this was supposedly anywhere between 5 and 7 a.m. It's not 100% confirmed as to what specific time it was, but his brother knows, like, okay, I woke up between 5 and 7, and I'm pretty sure I heard him leave. Why? Because at 7:30, Andre goes to breakfast to meet his father, Sean, and the rest of his family as he was instructed. So Andre gets there and everybody is, talking and catching up on all of the fun that was had. And Sean is looking around and he's like, hey, where's Kevin? And Andre tells him, oh, yeah, I thought I heard him leave earlier this morning. The only thing is, when Kevin left, he left his ID, he left his sail and sign card, his luggage hadn't been packed, nothing. So they're waiting and waiting, but Kevin never shows. And at this point, they're back in Miami at the port of Miami, and people are starting to get ready to debark because it's past 8 a.m. They open the doors and, it's takes the cruise line a little bit of time to get everybody off the ship. So at first, the family's not really panicking too much because again, it's going to take a couple of hours to get everybody off because when you get off and you debark, you have to go all the way down to the bottom of the ship. You have to get off, you have to go through customs. There's several lines, of course, but it takes a good minute. So, they're thinking, okay, well, maybe, he just went somewhere and fell asleep, or, maybe he's meeting up with somebody. Maybe he's back at the room packing because Andre told him, like, yeah, his suitcase hadn't been packed yet and he had left his stuff inside in the room. But as time goes on and people start getting off the ship more and more, the family is starting to worry because they're like, okay, we still ain't seen Kevin. He ain't nowhere to be found. So now the family has notified Carnival and they're telling them, "Hey, our family member Kevin McGrath is a passenger and he isn't here on the ship. We don't know where he is." So Carnival starts searching, but they never do the man overboard alarm. They start going through their footage and they're checking to see if Kevin scanned himself out because in order to get on and off the ship, you have to use your sail and sign card, like I said. So they're like, okay, we're not seeing any activity. They go to his room, they see his stuff is still there, untouched. And they're like, okay, time to get the police involved. And since they're now back in Miami, they contact Miami-Dade Police Department and they get out there and they start, checking the areas to see if they can locate Kevin. They're scanning the cards, or rather checking to see where it was last scanned. They're checking the ship, all of that. But Kevin is ghost. Like he's literally disappeared into thin air Casper. So now that he's missing, the first thing that, they're thinking is, well, did he go overboard? We know he didn't get off the ship, or, at least we know that he didn't scan himself off the ship and he didn't meet his family for breakfast. The last time anybody saw him was around 2 o'clock in the morning. And then his brother heard him come in at about 3:30, but never laid eyes on him. So he's nowhere to be found. The family has been waiting a good little minute with no answers. Like, after several hours had passed and they had no luck, the cruise line decides to get the Coast Guard involved and they tell them, okay, hey, we need to go back and search the areas where this ship was cruising so that we can see if Kevin's in the water. And they start scanning the waters. And according to the documents, the Coast Guard searched nearly 3,300 square nautical miles, and it took them about 80 hours to do that. Okay. Now, shortly before this, Kevin's ex wife, Addison, gets a phone call from one of her and Kevin's mutual friends. And she has no clue the news that she is about to get. She answers the phone thinking everything is cool until she hears, "Girl, have you seen the news about Kevin?" And Addison is confused. She's like, "What news? What's going on? I just talked to Kevin a few days ago. What happened?" And her friend tells her, "Girl, they saying Kevin is missing." And Addison is like, "Nah, that can't be my Kevin." So her friend sends her a link on the story to her. And when Addison reads it, she's mortified. Like she just talked to this man, not even but a few days before he left for his cruise. She was shocked to hear that, he had gone on a cruise because he hadn't mentioned it to her. But, you know, how could he just go missing so fast? And Addison is thinking like, okay, what the hell is going on? Because she had talked to Kevin all the way up until about August 28th. So she hits up his brother Andre and she's asking questions. What happened to Kevin? What's going on? Why didn't anybody tell me? And they're telling her, hey, listen, calm down. We just didn't want to say anything until he was found. But, sadly at this point, Kevin still hasn't been found. And now Addison is worried because she's got two babies with this man. One who's old enough to understand, when she sees her daddy on the TV. She knows who it is. Now, not being able to, come up with anything at this point, the Coast Guard has decided we're just gonna, go ahead and suspend the search because we're not finding anything. And they put it back into the hands of Miami PD. So now Miami Police Department is like, yeah, we need to launch an investigation. But in the back of everybody's minds, they're thinking he probably went overboard. Carnival does a more extensive search now. They've got Miami PD, they've got officials with the Port of Miami, Florida Fish and Wildlife Conservation Commission, they've got the US Coast Guard, and Carnival Cruise Line itself are all looking for Kevin. They're checking the areas of Bimini. Maybe he went back there. They're checking the waters to verify he didn't go overboard. They're checking every square inch of the ship and rechecking footage. And still, Kevin is nowhere to be found. Now they start interviewing Kevin's family members. They haven't given up hope. They know that he's alive and that he's, that he's somewhere, but the question is where? They just want answers. That's it. So all of Kevin's family members, they're telling the authorities what they know and, everything. And Kevin's dad, he's hurt. By now, Kevin's face is hitting the news big time. Everybody's wondering, where is Kevin? Why has he disappeared? Where could he have possibly gone? The cruise ship didn't sound the alarm for a man overboard, and the police don't know where he's at. And then things start to come out about Kevin. Now, people are finding out he wasn't even supposed to be on that ship. People are finding out that he's on probation for a felony. So now these theories are starting to play in people's heads. Maybe he just disappeared because he knew that he was in trouble. Maybe he somehow managed to sneak off the ship or even stay on the ship and hide out somewhere. Who knows? But it's starting to get real suspicious, and these theories are overshadowing the fact that Kevin is still missing. And now, of course, the family is looking at Carnival like, how the hell is somebody able to just disappear like that and not be found? How is there no footage of Kevin after 3:30 a.m. when he scanned himself into that cabin? Like this just seems fishy. His probation officer told the investigators he was already in trouble because he wasn't staying in touch like he was supposed to. We didn't know that he was going on this cruise. He wasn't supposed to do that without permission. And of course, the media wasted no time in revealing his criminal record. So this is being streamed all over news and media. And now, everybody is going back home and they're going to their separate ways and going back to their lives. His sister, Danielle McGrath, she actually, gets on CNN a few days after he had disappeared. And she talks to them because naturally people are coming up with their own narratives now that they know these things about him. Oh, well, he was dealing with all of this stuff. He's a felon. He was being held criminally negligent for child support. So maybe he just offed himself. Like, come on now. This man has family and friends. Why talk like that and put that in their heads? But Danielle, she stood firm, 10 toes down, honey. No, he's in good spirits. He was in good spirits. He was dancing and he was having fun. And she flat out said, something is not right. There's no way that my brother would just vanish into thin air like this. We want some answers. Today is day 4, and we know nothing about his whereabouts. They haven't found anything. There's so many scenarios that run through my head. Did he fall somewhere and he's screaming for help and no one hears him? Did he fall down an elevator shaft? I just don't know. It's just anything. And so naturally, they're reaching out to Carnival because they're knowing this isn't the first time that somebody has, disappeared or that there's been a problem on a ship like that. This man is 26 years old. He's physically fit. He's not, some unhealthy slob or anything. Hell, he was in the military. How is it that he just up and vanished and nobody knows where he is? So his family is starting to feel some type of way because they're looking and they're saying, "Oh, okay. We see how Carnival is treating this situation. We see how they're handling it. Gotcha." So one of Kevin's people, Shelby Bart, she starts a petition on change.org captioned, "Where is Kevin McGrath?" Now, the purpose of the petition is basically stating that Carnival confirmed that Kevin didn't go overboard based off of their onboard man overboard tronic system. However, Carnival never provided the proof to Kevin's family. And then on top of that, Carnival told Kevin's family that they didn't have any CCTV footage of Kevin. And in the petition, the family, they're asking for, specific things like proof of the overboard detection system that they're speaking of. They want to look at the CCTV footage and they wanted the family to be able to search the ship in every capacity that they saw fit, doing everything that they could, checking every nook and cranny and using cadaver dogs and anything that they could think of that would help them locate Kevin that would put them at ease. The petition stated, as a collective of Kevin's family, friends, and now the general public all over the world, we are asking for your full cooperation and finding out what happened to Kevin. We believe that Carnival wants to and will do the right thing. We believe that human life should take priority and precedence over any financial gain. To date, Carnival has shown us that they do not feel the same. Now, here's where stuff starts to get a little funny and had me kind of confused. So, if you all recall, I told you that earlier Kevin had gotten behind on child support. Well, he was delinquent on more than $200 worth of court fees. And, naturally, when you're delinquent on your court fees and you don't pay them, it hurts you because of the fact that, if you're on probation, it kind of makes it worse. So, something weird popped up in the system for Kevin after he was reported missing. September 22nd, 2023, which was like literally 2.5 weeks, 3 weeks after Kevin was reported missing, he had a case that was reopened, which was for probation violation. And it shows that he was booked. Now, the violation date shows September 22nd. Mind you, they got back to Miami September 4th. So I don't know if his probation officer reported it and was just like, hey, he never came back from the cruise. Go ahead and, put him as a warrant or something. So they issued an arrest warrant for Kevin on September 22nd, 2023, and it shows that he was booked. However, he's not actually in custody. So I kept looking at the case tracking and everything. And December 18th, 2023, they rescheduled his court date. And they literally keep rescheduling it for December of each year because obviously he hasn't popped up. So it went from December 18th, 2023 to December 16th, 2024, then December 15th of 2025, which hasn't even happened yet, but they've already got it reset again for December 18th of 2026. That just seems really odd to me that they're still, setting these dates and this man is nowhere to be found. But I mean, hey, I digress. So, like I said, at this point is where all of these conspiracy theories start to come into play. And a lot of people are left wondering, okay, did Kevin just disappear? Or could someone have helped him to escape the responsibility that he had? Did he actually fall overboard? Could his twin have helped him get away undetected? There's a lot of questions that are floating around, and I definitely want to address some of those in just a second during Make It Make Sense. But one thing is for certain is that Kevin Sean McGrath never scanned off that ship, and his body was never found in those waters. Okay, so the survival rate when you fall overboard is typically low. And a lot of people that do fall overboard, well, it's because they're in an area that is either not being monitored or for whatever reason there may be something faulty, which is very rare, or they're heavily intoxicated, which is typically the top reason. And it's like late at night, there's nobody on that deck, and that's how they fall over. Or, in some rare instances, there's a heavy, like movement on the ship, like a jerking or something that causes imbalance, and maybe someone may fall overboard. But be that as it may, Kevin is gone, and many people are wondering, where is he? Kevin Sean McGrath was last seen wearing a black t shirt and shorts with gray sneakers. He stands 5'9" and weighs 170 pounds. If you know anything on his whereabouts, please call the Miami Dade Police at 305-471-8477. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is the story of Kevin Sean McGrath, the missing military man out of Miami. And now it's time for Make It Make Sense. Y'all know this is my segment where I am looking into things that just don't add up. Like where you got to sit back and think, okay, what? Like make it make sense. Now, there's a lot of different things to address. The first being, what the hell did his criminal record have to do with anything? Lots of people have criminal records and take cruises. When you pay to cruise, your information is run. Carnival does a background check of sorts because certain acts will not get you on board. For example, child molesters, pedophiles, registered sex offenders, you will not be able to cruise. But if you do have a criminal record, you can still get on the ship, no problem. I have cruised with individuals that have felony records and have cruised, no problem. Went on the ship, got off the ship, no issues. Now, sometimes when you come back, you may have some nice officers waiting on you if you have a warrant for your arrest, but they gonna let you enjoy your vacation first. Like they like, yeah, go ahead, Cruz. We'll see you when you get back. And they will be standing at that dock waiting on you with some handcuffs. Okay. Like they not even gonna wait for you to come out. Like they gonna come in and get your ass. I'm just saying. But, Kevin having a criminal record does not dictate from the fact that he's missing. He's still a person. The only negative is that he didn't get authorization, to go to go on the cruise in the first place from his probation officer. And, he hadn't been in touch with said probation officer for quite some time. But again, he's still missing. He was behind on child support, yes, but it wasn't like it was for thousands and thousands of dollars. He had probation for aggravated assault. He had 6 years of probation for that. So, it's not like, he was out here murdering people. It's not like he was just out here beating people for no reason. It's not like, anything. Yes, homie had a record. Okay. But the main thing that he was in trouble for at that time was child support. He was behind on child support, but it wasn't like I said, it wasn't like it was for thousands of dollars. If you fall behind on child support in Tennessee, your wages can be garnished, federal or state tax refunds will be taken, lottery winnings, and even your passport can be intercepted or denied. Your professional and your driver's licenses can also be revoked. The Tennessee child support program can take the automatic actions and, you could potentially face a fine of or contempt of court, or sometimes when you get a contempt of court it does include fines and jail time for willfully non-payment. But it wasn't like he was willfully not paying it. He was trying to make money. He was trying to get a job. And that was the thing that he was in contempt of court for. So what would plummeting to his death and going overboard really fix for that? Like, he wasn't in over his head. It wasn't a situation where he was so far behind and he was like, "Oh God, I've just got to jump to my death." Like, and again, like I said, what did his criminal record have anything to do with him being missing, excuse me? Because so many people now were so focused on, oh, he had aggravated assault. Oh, he had a felony. That it was like you're taking away from the fact that he's gone. He's missing. He's still a person. And given today's climate with some of the things going on with the way people are acting, they're still a person, at the end of the day. And that's exactly what Kevin was. But you know what? Let's look at this from another angle. Let's say that he did go overboard. Was it willingly? Or was he intoxicated and fell by accident? Now, I can only assume that being in the army and serving tours in all of those countries, that he knew how to swim. However, you're in a situation where you have nothing but water for miles and miles. So, as strong of a swimmer as he may have been, could he have survived that? If he jumped willingly, could it be because of the back child support issue, like so many people believe? Or could we possibly look at this from another angle? This man was in the military and suffered from PTSD. The shit that he went through in Afghanistan, in Iraq, in Syria, that's not no normal everyday stuff. That in itself is a serious mental issue. He was dealing with a lot of mental anguish. And then on top of that, he had moved back in with his parents. He had a lot on his head. I don't think just the child support aspect would make him say that he didn't want to live anymore. Like, I mean, again, I can only assume. Oh, and then let's look at how Carnival handled the situation. Now, the sale and sign cards are used to keep track of everything from your room, and purchases and all of that. You have no traction of this man whatsoever after 3:30 a.m. Make that make sense. He left his room between 5 a.m. and 7 a.m., according to his brother Andre, and you have no footage of him walking down the hallway or to the elevator at all. Make that make sense. It doesn't. It doesn't make sense. But here's where I pose a question or comment, however you want to take it. If Kevin wanted to disappear, like a lot of people are speculating, how easy is it to get someone else's card and swipe yourself right on off the ship? Or the ship is docked long before debarkation because you getting there. I've been on several cruises with Carnival. The ship will be docked back at the original port at like 6 in the morning. It just doesn't open the doors until like 8. So could he have quietly jumped, if there is, such a thing as quietly jumping, and just swam a good distance to a different area? Like, there's a lot of variables here. Many people believe that Kevin is still alive. Some people believe that he jumped overboard because, the financial struggle became too much. Some people believe that he started a new identity elsewhere to bail on the responsibilities that he had at home. It's been 2 years, and his family still has so many questions unanswered. His children have yet to hear their father's voice or see his face. Addison is left to raise her children alone, facing the realities that Kevin may never return. She says, "We have to wake up every day wondering, where is Kevin? I just want him found alive and safe. That would literally put the pressure off my heart." We still have that strong bond. Regardless of if we are divorced or not, together or not, we still would talk a lot. My daughter, she's older, so she understands a little more. She knows when dad isn't answering his phone. And I would like to thank Addison Thomas for her speaking with me to spread awareness for Kevin. Again, Kevin Sean McGrath is a black male that stands at 5'9", weighing 170 pounds. According to a missing persons poster shared by Miami-Dade Police, he was last seen wearing a black t-shirt and shorts with gray sneakers. If you know anything on his whereabouts, please call the Miami-Dade Police at 305-471-8477. Thank you for joining me for this episode of The Missing Ones, where we shine a light on the stories of missing people of color. If you found value in today's case, please consider sharing this episode with others and leaving a review. Case suggestions may be emailed to themissingonespodcast@gmail.com. That's TheMissingOnespodcast@gmail.com. The show streams on all streaming services from Odyssey, Apple Podcasts, and of course, Spotify and many others. Information will be posted in the Infamous Ones discussion group on Facebook for tonight's episode. And remember, together we can raise awareness and advocate for justice. Until next time, take care and continue to seek truth and compassion in every story. Bye now.
Thank you for listening to The Missing Ones, a true crime podcast. If you have any information regarding any of the cases covered, please reach out to local authorities or the organizations dedicated to finding them. Join us next week as we explore more stories, more voices, and keep the hope alive for those still missing. Until then, stay safe, stay aware, and remember, their story matters.